Hi, I'm Jay Gruenke, founder of the Balanced Runner System, and I've been helping runners from beginner to Olympian improve their form and performance since 2003. And I'm here today with another stuck-at-home running form tip. From my living room to yours, where I take the thumbnail for this video, see in the picture the laundry on the sofa behind me, and scramble to move it out of the way before the video starts. Working from home joys. Anyway, I'd like to help you take this opportunity, to become a better runner. Leroy and I would. Leroy's in the house. So we've been talking about your head, and literally and physically about your head. But getting your head physically right actually clears your head mentally better too. And anytime your running isn't so much of a struggle, then it does its job of reducing your stress and helping you feel more at peace, much better. So I want to help you more with that today by looking at a few common errors that people make with their heads, and which have really big effects on how your whole body works. And as I said in a blog post on the subject, your head carriage is the other end of your foot strike. You know, like it's one thing, and at one end is how your foot hits the ground, at the other end is what you're doing with your head, and it's totally connected through your body. And so that's why this matters so much. So let's look at a couple of things that you or someone you know might be doing. Very popular thing to do with your head is to retract it. So it makes a really attractive double chin, even in very lean people. But you can do it a lot, or you can do it just a little. Sometimes people who have text neck, who stand and sit like this, which in our digital society we tend to do, are given exercises by physical therapists, to stand against a wall and pull your head back. And the idea is that it stretches out the thigh muscles here and it activates the muscles in the front of your neck. And so then you're more balanced. Oh, it also totally strains your vocal cords. So you want somewhere in between for standing and walking and sitting. For running, as I've described in the last two videos, you actually need to slide your head forward in a way that makes you lean forward. So, but a lot of people will tell you not to do that. Again, not being clear on the necessity of a forward lean and trying to help you avoid this, which is also not a good way to run. And maybe I should have started with that mistake, but we'll get to it in a sec. So anyway, whether intentionally you've been pulling your head back to avoid sticking it forward because someone told you to do that, or whether that's just something that naturally happens for you, the effect on your back, so imagine I'm leaning forward now. Let me move a little farther away. If I pull my head back, it pulls my upper body back, but my pelvis is still tilted forward, so then I'm arching my lower back. It's just that extra little bit of curve beyond my natural lumbar curve. It's quite uncomfortable even just to stand here like this. Very uncomfortable to run that way. And sometimes people in that case will tell you that the problem was your pelvis was tilted forward, but it wasn't. The problem is you tilted your pelvis forward appropriately for running, but you pulled your head back instead of letting your head go forward. So sometimes people pull their heads back spontaneously when their hip flexors are too contracted and they're not lengthening enough, because you have to actually really be able to lengthen your hip flexor to get into this part of your gait cycle. And if your hip flexor is tight, then as you try to extend your hip joint, I'll move this arm out of the way, you run out of ability to just extend the hip joint. And so you pull the pelvis with it, and that pulls your back into too much of an arch. It pulls your pelvis into too much of an anterior tilt. And then and it pulls your lower back along with it. And then to balance yourself, you will pull your head back to keep from having it thrown forward by that action. And so one cause of retracting your head, of the impulse to retract your head, is actually tight hip flexors. And so you should, if this sounds like you, then before you run, you definitely need to do a good hip joint warm-up. And I will post a link to my video of my favorite hip warm-ups in the description below as well. So that's the retracted head. So, oh, sorry, it does, so it arches your back, or there is another way that this can play out. So if in a runner who is really very disciplined with their strength training and their form, they're trying to follow all the classic advice, they may pull their head back because they're trying to run tall and run upright. They may be swinging their arms front to back because they don't want to waste energy crossing the body. See my previous videos for why front to back is wrong. But anyway, trying to do this, trying to avoid the anterior pelvic tilt and keep the pelvis nice and upright. And so there is a way, like if you are really strong in your core, you really contract your abdominals, really, pull your shoulders back and bring yourself upright and pull your head back, that you can run like that. And when you do, you'll hit the ground very hard. It will be very stressful to your legs because your weight is now not able to shift well from leg to leg, and you can't get good leverage off the ground because you're not organizing yourself over one leg and over the other leg, which needs to be done with a mobile torso rather than a stiff one. And you will heel strike more than you want to and get a lot of braking force that way that slows you down with every step. So it's a very effortful way to run. That's the other way that can play out. So the next very common head error that you see is just your head down. And, just looking at the ground. Maybe you're tired, especially people will do this running uphill, though it makes running uphills twice as hard. But you let the effort get you down, literally. And the effect of that is really easy to see. Look at what happens to my back when I bring my head down. It just gets round. And so then you tend to sit behind your foot when you're running. You tend to really depend almost entirely on your quads for energy. You tend to land very far back on your heels and not really get your weight to your toes before going off into the air. Like you'll go off into the air about here instead of here. So you become very vulnerable to plantar fasciitis, to runner's knee, to running really slowly, and to really feeling like running is a whole lot of work. And you'll also probably struggle with your breathing. So just begin, if that sounds like you, just begin by lifting your eyes to look at the horizon. Your eyes have such a powerful effect on how you organize your whole body, because through our whole evolution as a species, and really every creature that has eyes needs to be able to, as instantaneously as possible, respond to what they see by moving their whole body. So the movement of the eyes is closely interwoven with your movement of your whole body. So anything you do with your eyes is going to change what muscles are active in your body. So just even lifting your eyes in their sockets a little bit will tend to lift your head, and that will tend to activate the muscles more in your back, your glutes, your calves also productively, and shift your whole body. Just lowering your eyes a little bit will tend to bring you down. Looking around will tend to keep you really in a balanced place, and preserving the ability to look around and to respond to your environment, which is what your brain really wants for safety anyway, and certainly for enjoyment if you're lucky enough to be running in a beautiful place. So I'm putting also in the description below a link to the same very short 6-minute mini lesson called Eyes While Running that really helps free all of this up. So if you haven't taken advantage of that in the last 2 videos, just go and get that after you finish watching this, and learn it in your living room, and then do it outside in a safe place on your next run, and see what difference it makes to you, how your whole body works afterwards. So the next error that I want to look at is that text neck that I referred to earlier, that where your head goes forward. It's kind of like your face. It's kind of like face forward, like I've talked about, and as the positive thing you're supposed to do. But your whole body doesn't follow; it stays behind. So instead of this, you just do this. And again, this can be a habit from your desk, your device, your whatever. This is also something that triathletes tend to do a lot because of the bike, because of being rounded on the bike and then bending the neck to be able to see where you're going. And honestly, the more you use those, I think they're called aero bars, so that not only are you bent, but you're also narrowing your chest. That rounds your back significantly more, and it's going to really create a habit of bending your neck while keeping your back round. So this can be a struggle for triathletes. And in that case, what you need, again, eyes while running is actually going to help. And it's even something that if you're cautious about, you could do a little bit of in a race situation. So go for that. But also for triathletes, normally there's just a learning experience needed. And for anyone who's having that particular problem, for how to have your spine follow and be extended instead of rounding when you move your head forward. So I have lots of learning materials for that go a whole lot deeper than eyes while running and have to do with how you coordinate what happens with your shoulder blades, your chest and your back and the relation and your pelvis. Sorry, because that's the other thing that happens with text neck. So if I do this and my back gets round, if you watch the bottom line of my shirt, you'll see my pelvis actually, it moves backward, but it also tilts backwards. So you can actually end up with a posterior pelvic tilt. That's a part of having your head down or the text neck version of running. And that really flings your legs in front of you. So you turn your whole body. This is where, again, you can so clearly see that the head is the other end of the foot strike. It's one thing through the body. And if your upper body, either this way or this way, turning yourself into a C, that will continue I'm going to move farther away so you can, I'm going to tilt the camera down so you can see my feet. That will just turn you into a C shape through your whole body. So like this. So your leg will go forward like this. If I just put my leg in front of me and I go like this, I haven't intentionally lifted my leg, but it just comes up because my pelvis moved and all of my flexors fired. So so your leg goes much more in front of you, is more likely to land really on your heel if you're doing either head down or text neck. And you don't want that for a multitude of reasons, some of which I've alluded to already. The hard heel strike, the pattern of soreness, the irritation of the knees, and the slow running, the feeling of heavy legs. So the last head error that I want to look at, and this is just going to be the tip of the iceberg on this one, but in these videos I haven't really talked too much about symmetry, because there are a lot of ways to be asymmetrical, and that's actually quite a deep topic in and of itself. And in my experience, first, nobody is perfectly symmetrical. And your best defense against getting injured by your asymmetries is not doing any crazy jump in your training. So is a slow, steady, and progressive training plan. You do need to deal with asymmetries sometimes, especially if they're strong or if they're connected to a pattern of injury, and I would say, honestly, people come to me for that a lot. But whatever asymmetries you have will be less significant in terms of injury and performance if your overall form is better. So an asymmetry in this position is going to lead to way more stress than an asymmetry in a neutral position. That said, however, we do have to look at asymmetry. So a lot of people have a habit of tilting their head to one side or the other on a continuous basis when they run. And actually, a person who does that probably tilts their head exactly that way also when walking and on their computer and whatever else they do. And it may in fact be connected to some other asymmetrical thing that is part of their life. or an old pattern of injury, or a bit of scoliosis, or any number of other causes for that. But what will tend to, and there are a lot of ways that this can play out, but the most common scenario, I should tilt this down again so you can see my feet, is that your weight will shift to the leg that you're tipping your head away from. And again, this is like a C curve, but in another plane. So if I bend like this, yeah, or like a banana, right? The two ends go that way and the middle goes the opposite way. And again, this is allowing me to counterbalance so that I stay upright and don't fall over in this gravitational field that our lives are all about. So just making a small movement of tilting my head, you can see me shift. That's going to tend to happen. So if I tend to tilt my head to the right, I'm most likely going to have longer ground contact time on my left foot. I'm going to have a harder time toeing off of it. It's going to feel flatter, and I'm going to feel overly muscled on the right side, and like my right side is always working hard. And that's because my weight gets on my left foot and stays on my left foot, and I have a really hard time getting my weight on my right foot. I'm exaggerating with the head to make the point. Sometimes something a bit more complicated will happen. A head will be shifted one way and tilted the other, and in that case, well, that can be complicated. But if you have just a tilt, like a classic one is Mary Kaitani, if you know the elite runner, tilts her head to the right just a little bit, and the harder she's working, kind of the more duress she's under, the more it tilts. It's just because that's a deep movement habit for her, is tightening on that side. And her performance would undoubtedly be a little bit better if she didn't do that. But you certainly couldn't argue that she's done too badly. There's no one who couldn't be better, except possibly Kipchoge. So that is the overview of the classic most common errors with the head. So see if you're doing any of those. Eyes while running should help with all of them. I'm also linking to a blog post below where I go through all of this kind of in written detail and with photos of runners doing with their heads well organized and doing a range of these problems and others. So you can get a little more visual on that and a little more background explanation if you're the type of person who likes to dive more deeply into subjects. So that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching. I'm actually going to take the whole weekend off this time because it turns out that this shelter-in-place, lockdown, coronavirus thing that we're all in is maybe going to be a marathon and not a sprint. And so I need to pace myself. In addition, tomorrow's my birthday, so I'm going to take it off. If you feel moved to send a gift, toilet paper would be gratefully accepted. Yeah. my husband is commenting from the peanut gallery. He's done a great job of obtaining toilet paper sufficient to our needs and not beyond this week. So that's off. Anyway, if you like this video, please hit like so that YouTube knows to share it with other runners who need this information. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and make sure you don't miss a video. Thanks, Stefano, for your comment. Nice to see you here again today. Please check out the resources in the description below and all the other ones I have for you on balancedrunner.com, and I will see you again in 2 days. Be well.